In honor of Black Maternal Health Week, many organizations across the nation, including many here in the Lowcountry, are raising awareness about the major disparities that Black women face during pregnancy and childbirth.
Tonight, nonprofits Berkeley County First Steps and the Be Collective will be hosting a health panel discussion called Action Beyond Grief, with the focus of advocacy, education, and awareness for South Carolina families.
Live 5's Samantha German has that story.
Just 3 months after certified midwife and Black maternity care advocate Dr. Janelle Green-Smith passed away during childbirth in January, a panel of local healthcare experts is making sure her life's work continues to live on.
To think that a Black midwife who devoted her life to maternal and infant well-being would lose her life in the exact fashion that she worked so hard to prevent was shattering for not only myself as someone who had the honor of working with her, but for the entire community.
Medical professionals say as a result of pregnancy-related complications, Black women, including here in South Carolina, lose their lives 3 to 4 times more than their white counterparts. One of the reasons why organizers and participants of tonight's event say it's important to have these community conversations to give people a place to discuss their issues and concerns publicly.
I think this week is going to allow people to get more education, more knowledge about what it looks like in the doula world, right? What the birth workers are doing here in the community. So I think it's important for people to be able to see what we're doing and how they can apply this to their life or maybe one of their friends' life.
A way of honoring Dr. Janelle Green-Smith and the many women and families impacted by maternal mortality rates.
One of the last things that I remember her telling me is, Simone, you're needed in this work. So anytime that I can open my mouth and talk about these important issues, talk about the plight that Black women face, talk about the disparities that exist, I honor her and I walk in her footsteps.
For a list of events happening this week for Black Maternal Health Week, you can head to our website, live5news.com. In Hanahan, Samantha German, Live 5 News.